Hello and welcome to Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. Just ahead on this week's episode, finding the next generation of soldiers. We check in with Army leadership to see how they're looking to increase their ranks through new recruits. We'll tell you what's working and what challenges stand in the way. Plus, we meet D-Fend Solutions, one of the leaders in counter-drone technology. They don't just take out the enemy's drones, they take them over. And in this week's comms check, see why Lockheed Martin is picking up the pace on F-35 production. But first, here are some headlines you may have missed. The Pentagon estimates North Korea deployed between 10 and 12,000 troops in Russia's Kursk region and warns that the troops would become legitimate military targets if they engage in combat support operations against Ukraine.
So placing these additional 10 to 11 to 12,000 forces in Kursk is definitely something from a combat capability standpoint that could be significant, but a lot of that will depend on how those forces are employed, how they're integrated into the Russian command and control, and of course, if the Ukrainians, if the past is any indicator of the future, the Ukrainians are battle-hardened veterans who know how to fight, and so every indication that they will continue to defend Ukrainian sovereignty and continue to defend Kursk, the territory that they've taken, and so we'll see how that plays out.
If North Korean troops start fighting against Ukraine forces, it will mark North Korea's first participation in a large-scale conflict since the end of the Korean War in 1953. China's defense ministry condemned the recent U.S. arms sale to Taiwan and said the Chinese military would enhance its military capability to safeguard national sovereignty. The $2 billion arms sale was approved by Washington, D.C., and includes the first-time delivery of an advanced surface-to-air missile defense system. A spokesperson for the Chinese Defense Ministry said the sale would, quote, surely backfire, and urged the U.S. not to go further down the wrong path. The potential sales package approved by the U.S. includes 3 National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems, also known as NASAMS, and related equipment valued at up to $1.16 billion, according to the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs. Boeing overcharged the U.S. Air Force for spare parts for C-17 transport planes, including marking up the price on soap dispensers by nearly 8,000%. That's according to a report by a Pentagon watchdog. The Department of Defense Office of Inspector General said the Air Force overpaid nearly $1 million for a dozen spare parts, including $149,072 for an undisclosed number of soap dispensers. On the release of the report, the DoD's Inspector General Robert Storch said the Air Force needs to establish and implement more effective internal controls to help prevent overpaying for spare parts for the remainder of this contract, which continues through 2031. Significant overpayments for spare parts may reduce the number of spare parts that Boeing can purchase on the contract, potentially reducing C-17 readiness worldwide. In response, Boeing said it was reviewing the report, adding that it appears to be based on an inapt comparison for the prices paid for parts that meet military specifications and designs versus basic commercial items that would not be qualified or approved for use on the C-17. It's been a rough year for Boeing, which received negative publicity after federal investigations were launched when a door plug flew off a 737 MAX during an Alaska Airlines flight in January. And the company agreed to plead guilty to a felony count of conspiracy to defraud the government for misleading regulators regarding pilot training rules for the 737 MAX. A plea deal in that case is currently pending. Recruiting. Just like in college sports, recruiting is the lifeblood of America's volunteer military force. And similar to college sports, military recruiters are facing more challenges when attracting the top talent to serve the country. From more opportunities in secondary education to an evolving workforce that's not requiring a 4-year degree, young people have more options than ever before. That's why the Army is focusing on transforming how it recruits the next generation of soldiers. On the surface, it would appear what the Army is doing when it comes to recruiting is working. Army recruiters exceeded their goal of 55,000 new soldiers in 2024 by 0.5%. That included eclipsing their target for delayed enlistment recruits by 6,000 new soldiers. Some added context, though, reveals the number of new soldiers was largely flat over the last 2 years, with 54,000 in 2023 falling 11,000 short of their goal of 65,000. Conversely, 11,000 people entered the delayed entry program, well above last year's number of about 4,600. Secretary of the Army Christine Wormuth says those numbers are a direct result of Army leadership putting an emphasis on changing how they went about making sure their ranks stayed filled.
I believe that our success this year shows the promise of what is just around the corner: complete transformation of our recruiting enterprise. There's still work to do to finish this transformation, but the Army, this won't surprise you, is moving out aggressively.
First and foremost, again, getting the talent right, and we started to see a big change in bringing the right talent of not only leaders, but also recruiters. Let's assess our recruiters and make sure we select the right recruiters.
Part of that plan included improving how they train recruiters. The Training with Industry program offers soldiers the chance to work with civilian industry experts within their field to learn the company's best practices and methodologies. To kickstart this initiative, the Army partnered with companies like Amazon, Deloitte, Wells Fargo, and the University of Louisville to provide a wide range of experiences for recruiters.
It is truly about the recruiter, making sure that the recruiter has in its access the things that they need to be able to make sure that they can actually do what they're supposed to be doing. And that's prospecting and nurturing the leads of which they actually receive.
Brigadier General Antoinette Gant is the chief of the Army's Enterprise Marketing Office and played a role in the return of one of the Army's classic recruiting campaigns.
Stand up!
Everybody was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're going back to be all you can be. It really wasn't a go back to it. What it was that was what resonated, not just with those who had served, but those that were wanting or considering to serve, because of the fact that this is saying, we want the best you that you can actually be.
Another avenue of success for the Army, the introduction of a program specifically designed to help potential recruits that have trouble initially qualifying for service.
For young Americans who had the desire to join the Army, but not the test scores, we created the Future Soldier Prep Course to give them a path to meet our standards.
A simple course to really invest in them, not just from academic and physical, but hey, let's invest in them, show them how, camaraderie, how to eat, all of the different, how to exercise. And what we've seen within 2 weeks is transformational. And they're going on to really lead our force as they do graduate and go off to basic combat training and to their first units of assignments.
The initial results are impressive. The Future Soldier Preparatory Course graduated 16,000 students into basic training in 2024. Wormuth says today's high school seniors represent more than 50% of the Army's annual enlistments, but they represent only 15 to 20% of a larger prospect pool they need to be recruiting. One avenue to that was the introduction of the Soldier Referral Program, an incentive for active duty, Guard, or Reserve soldiers to refer new recruits to join the ranks. Less than 2 years old, the program has already yielded 77,000 referrals and 5,000 new soldiers. With the success of these initiatives, the Secretary upped the ante during the opening ceremonies of this year's AUSA National Meeting.
Looking ahead to fiscal year 2025, I am announcing today that General George and I have set a new goal to recruit 61,000 new soldiers, 6,000 more than this year.
It's an ambitious goal to be sure. The last time the Army reported more than 61,000 new recruits in a year was 2019, when a little more than 68,000 new recruits put their name on the dotted line.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
In the modern battle space, drones are becoming as ubiquitous as armored vehicles, fighter jets, and aircraft carriers, an essential piece of any military force's plan of action. While defenses against traditional means of warfare are as tried and tested as the vehicles they aim to stop, counter-drone defense is a new but rapidly evolving piece of any military's battle plan. That's why the AirEnforce Air 2 from D-Fend Solutions is our weapon of the week. A quick search of practically any social media platform will yield hundreds of clips of Ukraine's drone operators inflicting devastating damage on troops and equipment. It's that kind of destruction counter-drone manufacturers are working to mitigate. Enter D-Fend Solutions in the AirEnforce Air 2.
What we're known for is the actual RF cyber takeover. We take over the drone. The drone now has a new master, if you will, and it's landed safely in a pre-designated zone.
It's a novel solution to an increasingly real problem. Counter-drone defenses usually fall into one of 9 categories: EMP or HPM technology, directional jammers, global navigation satellite spoofing, handheld jammers, kinetic solutions, laser-based systems, omnidirectional jammers, radio frequency jammers, and RF cyber-based takeover technology. That's what the AirEnforce Air 2 brings to the table.
It's based on a deep understanding of the communication protocols of the drone. So a unauthorized or hostile or rogue drone enters the protected area. We can immediately detect it, and we set off an alert at that point to all the operators. And then it moves into, from that point on, we're tracking it closely. We're not tracking only the drone, but also the pilot and the takeoff position.
Jeffrey Starr, D-Fend Solutions CMO, says this takeover approach not only reduces or eliminates the number of limitations found in early counter-drone technology, it opens a window into all kinds of information.
We're identifying what is this drone, what is the make, the model, the manufacturer, the serial number, but more importantly, its capabilities. So you understand, and is this friendly, is this authorized, is this unauthorized? So you have this identification phase. And then ultimately, you move into mitigation.
Starr tells Weapons and Warfare this approach not only protects friendly forces, it adds the ability to gather intel on adversaries.
You can capture the drone, you can capture the intelligence associated with the drone too. And so obviously you capture it very, very surgical, very precise. You don't have the collateral damage dangers, you don't have the disruption dangers, you don't have the operational disturbance. You above all have continuity.
Another selling point of the AirEnforce Air 2 is adaptability. Ranging from tactical, vehicular, or stationary deployment, heck, you can even throw it in a backpack.
The backpack version is our latest version, and we'll continue that, getting a smaller footprint and getting that portability. Otherwise, it's a never-ending cat and mouse and leapfrog game as new drone dangers emerge. We, of course, have to overcome them.
According to Star, D-Fend Solutions is operating in 27 different countries, providing counter-drone protection in defense, homeland security, law enforcement, and critical infrastructure. They're also working to help pass legislation that would make their technology available to state and local authorities right here in the United States. It's time now for Comms Check, and this week we have a two-parter featuring a weapons and warfare favorite, the F-35 Lightning II. A report in Air and Space Forces magazine says Lockheed Martin is making good on its prediction of delivering its fifth-generation fighter at a clip of 20 jets a month. A rep for the longtime defense contractor says Lockheed delivered more than 60 jets in 3.5 months, prompting the company to revise its delivery estimates of 2024 from a minimum of 75 jets to a minimum of 90. That adds up to deliveries of between 15 and 23 more jets per month by December 31st. This is all on the heels of the resumption of deliveries this summer after the DoD declined to accept new aircraft without the full Tech Refresh 3 upgrade. In June, the program's executive officer lifted the hold on deliveries after determining a truncated version of the TR-3 was stable and safe for flight. And remember the F-35 that flew for 64 miles after the pilot ejected? That Marine Corps pilot was recently relieved of command. Colonel Charles DePizzo told the Marine Corps Times he was the pilot who ejected from the F-35B over Charleston, South Carolina on September 17th of last year. He also confirmed he had recently been relieved of command of Marine Test and Evaluation Squadron 1 at Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, Arizona. This all comes after a crash investigation found the colonel's primary display and communications had cut out as he was attempting to land in the rain at Joint Base Charleston. The recently released report also disclosed the aircraft's standby flight display and backup communication system remained basically functional. While investigators found Del Pizzo followed procedures and was not derelict in his duties, they also concluded he could have continued flying the jet, and his decision to eject was a mistake. Following his review of the findings, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Eric Smith, ordered Del Pizzo be relieved of command.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week on Weapons and Warfare. As always, please like and subscribe to all of our social feeds and share them with your friends. Sharing is caring, after all. So for the last few months in the United States, we've been hearing about how President-elect Donald Trump would end the wars currently taking place and prevent future wars from starting. Here's why I hope ending the war in Ukraine does not mean abandoning Ukraine. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard me speak before about the United States' treaty-bound obligations to defend Ukraine, about its duty as the world's leading democracy to help support other democracies. Those things aside, the U.S. should support Ukraine because if Russia wins, even if it's just a stop in the fighting and the Kremlin gets to keep the land it seized, China will see that as weakness in the West and use it as one more reason to try and take Taiwan. And friends, if you like living in the 21st century with all the modern conveniences and luxuries we have, the thought of China taking Taiwan should be alarming. Because for the last 50 years or so, the small island has been the world's capital for microchip manufacturing. And boy, do we use a lot of microchips. They're in everything. Cars, cameras, computers, phones, TVs, toasters, electronic Barca loungers. If the thing plugs in or uses electrical power in any way, odds are it has at least one microchip in it. Remember during the pandemic when car lots were empty and thousands of electronics were on back order? COVID highlighted plenty of problems in the supply lines, but maybe none so consequential as modern society's reliance on semiconductors. Our military is also very reliant on the flow of chips from Taiwan to stay flowing. Through President Biden's CHIPS Act, the U.S. is in the process of developing more domestic capacity to make microprocessors, but it's not there yet and won't be for some time. We've heard lots of talk about tariffs and how those can be used as an economic lever against China, but Taiwan can absolutely be used as a lever against the U.S. and its allies if a hostile actor seizes control of the island. The best way to deter China, or any adversary, is to convince them the cost of their actions outweigh the benefits. If Russia is not defeated in Ukraine, China will see the cost to an oppressive regime taking on the world's democracies doesn't amount to much. That's what I think anyway. What about you? Tell us in the comments below or send us an email to weaponsandwarfare@san.com. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics artist Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.